Hello everyone, welcome to World History Explored. Today we are delving into the rich history of Panama. The Chibchan, Choco, and Cuiva languages were widely spoken by the people who settled in Panama before the Europeans arrived. The size of the pre-Columbian indigenous population is unknown with accuracy. Up to 2 million individuals are estimated. They grew corn, squash, and root crops, fished, hunted, and made their living from harvesting edible plants and fruits. Their wattle and daub homes had palm leaf thatched roofs. Santa Maria la Antigua del Darien, the first permanent European settlement on the American continent, was established in 1510. The location near the Torina River's mouth on the Atlantic was decided upon by Vasco Núñez de Balboa and Martin Fernández de Enciso. After being abandoned in 1519, the community relocated to Nuestra Señora de la Asunción de Panamá, which is now Panama City. This was the first European settlement on the Pacific coast. 30 years after abolition in 1852, the Isthmus approved jury trials for criminal crimes, and slavery was formally declared and enforced. Before we go on, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Let's get started. Pre-Columbian history. Projectile points from Paleo-Indians are among the oldest items found in Panama. Later, the Monegrillo civilizations, which date to about 2500 and 1700 BC, were located in central Panama and produced some of the first ceramics in the Americas. These developed into sizable populations that are most well known for the remarkable burials at the Monegrillo archaeological site, which date to roughly 500 to 900 AD, and the Grand Coquelin-style polychrome pottery. Additional significant proof of the ancient Isthmian cultures can be found in the enormous monolithic sculptures at the Burials, Tariqui site. Numerous native Isthmian communities are described in archaeological discoveries and accounts by early European explorers as displaying cultural diversity and having prior experience using regional trade routes. The native population of Panama was subsistence farmers who grew root crops, corn, cocoa, and edible plants and fruits. Hammocks were draped between the inner walls of their little palm leaf-covered homes, which were supported by rounded branch frameworks. Evidence exists that coconuts traveled from the Philippines to the Panamanian Pacific coast during pre-Columbian times. Spanish colonial period. The first European to discover the Panama Isthmus by sailing along its eastern shore was Rodrigo de Bastidas in 1501. After a year, Christopher Columbus set off on his fourth journey, which he named Portobello, Beautiful Port, exploring Bocas del Toro, Veragua, the Chagres River, and south and east on his way from Upper Central America. Spanish explorers would soon come to Tierra Firma, also Tierra Firme, which was the name given to the Panama Isthmus during Spanish colonial times. Independence. New Granada won independence from Spain in 1819. For all intents and purposes, Panama and the other parts of the erstwhile New Granada were so free. Panama contemplated joining the federations that were forming in the area by uniting with either Peru or Central America. Ultimately, it was won over by Simon Bolivar of Gran Colombia, who received 2 armies to liberate South America after settling in Jacó, Haiti. 19th century. The Isthmus reaffirmed its independence in 1831. This time with General Al-Zaruf serving as supreme military commander during the process of separating Venezuela and Ecuador. The forces under Colonel Toms de Herrera's command opposed the abuses committed by Al-Zaruf's brief administration, leading to Al-Zaruf's defeat and execution in August and the restoration of relations with New Granada. A civil war was started by a dispute over religion. In November 1840, during this battle, the Isthmus, under the command of General Toms de Herrera, who took on the title Superior Civil Chief, proclaimed its independence together with many other local administrations. In March 1841, the state of Panama adopted the moniker Estado Libre del Istmo, which translates to Free State of the Isthmus. By March 1841, the newly formed state had developed a constitution that allowed it to rejoin New Granada, albeit as a federal district, and had also developed external political and commercial relations. March 1841 saw Herrera renamed Superior Chief of State, and June 1841 saw him promoted to president. After 13 months of independence, Panama's first republic was still intact after the Civil War was over and New Granada and the Isthmus had successfully negotiated the Isthmus readmission to the Union. On December 31, 1841, there was a reunification. The USA's active participation under the 1846 Bidlack-Mallarino Pact until 1903 ultimately made the Union, known as the United States of Colombia from 1863 to 1886, and the Republic of Colombia since 1886, possible. The idea of building railroads and or canals through Central America to expedite transoceanic travel excited North American and French interests in the 1840s, 2 decades after the Monroe Doctrine announced U.S. intentions to be the dominant anti-European imperial power in the Western Hemisphere. It was also obvious that New Granada's hold on the Isthmus was starting to lose its viability. The U.S. was granted the right of passage across the Isthmus, as well as the crucial authority to intervene militarily in order to preserve the Isthmus neutrality and uphold New Granada's sovereignty. When the U.S. and New Granada signed the Bidlack-Mallarino Treaty in 1846. The Panama Railway was the first transcontinental railroad in history, having crossed the isthmus from Aspinwall/Colon to Panama City in 1855, when an American visitor stole a watermelon from a local fruit vendor in April 1856. A group of enraged Panamanians attacked the travelers who were using the Panama Railroad to go to and from the California Gold Rush. This dispute is known as the Watermelon Riot. In September 1856, the outbreak forced the U.S. to dispatch troops to guard the train terminals. The U.S. intervened in Panama with troops for the first of many occasions with this. Construction. The 83-kilometer, 50-mile lock canal that currently exists is regarded as one of the greatest engineering feats in history, having been constructed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers between 1904 and 1914. The Colombian government of Rafael Reyes signed and sent to Congress on January 5, 1909, a treaty that would have recognized the official loss of the province. However, the treaty was not ratified because of resistance from the people and the legislature. Up until a new treaty was signed on December 21, 1921, officially recognizing Panama's independence, negotiations went back and forth. The canal company's early-stage segregation and Roosevelt's walk softly, carry a big stick attitude have drawn a lot of criticism. But aside from the financial boost to the labor force and economy, Panama benefited greatly from the changes the canal project brought about. Engineers created a waste, sewage, and potable water treatment system that included the Panama and Colon towns, as well as the canal zone, in order to sanitize the area before and during construction. U.S. involvement. During Colombia's Thousand Days War in 1902, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt persuaded Congress to take up the abandoned works. Liberal guerrillas like Victoriano Lorenzo and Belisario Porras led at least 3 of the liberal attempts to take control of Panama during the war, and each attempt was put down by a coalition of U.S. and conservative Colombian forces operating under the terms of the Mallarino-Bidlack Treaty, which had been in place since 1846. In exchange for a $10 million payment and a $250,000 yearly payment starting in 1912, the Roosevelt administration suggested to Colombia that the U.S. take control of the canal. The Hay-Herran Pact was negotiated with great success for the U.S., which got all it wanted. However, the Colombian government hesitated to ratify them because it felt that the U.S. was biased against them and started to demand more money. The talks had all but collapsed by September 1903. After that, the U.S. modified its strategy. Military coups and coalitions. An oligarchy focused on commerce ruled the Republic of Panama from 1903 until 1968. The Panamanian military started to question the oligarchy's political power in the 1950s. Tensions between the nation and the U.S. government over the latter's prolonged occupation of the Canal Zone increased after the Martyrs' Day riots on January 9, 1964. 500 other Panamanians were injured and 20 rioters perished. There were also 4 U.S. servicemen slain. Dr. Arnulfo Arias Madrid won the presidency a third time in October 1968. After just 10 days in office, the National Guard removed him from office as president, following his 2 previous removals by the Panamanian military. A military junta took power, with Brig. Gen. Omar Torrijos, the head of the National Guard, emerging as the main political figure in Panama. With the opening of schools, the creation of jobs, and the transfer of agricultural land, the most well-liked action of his government, Torrijos carried out a populist program. A significant public works program was implemented in tandem with the reforms. Additionally, it deals with international corporations in North America, asking them to raise worker wages and redistribute 180,000 hectares of uncultivated land. It tried to create the Union of Banana Exporting Countries in February 1974, taking after OPEC's oil model in an effort to counter the power of these international corporations, but it was unable to garner their support. Its policies support indigenous groups' representation as well as the rise of the middle class. President Jimmy Carter of the United States and Omar Torrijos of Panama signed the Torrijos-Carter Treaties on September 7, 1977, committing both countries to transferring the 14 U.S. Army posts and the Panama Canal entirely to Panama by 1999. Additionally, these treaties gave the U.S. the unrestricted power to use military force. In the years that followed, more authority over the canal and some areas of the zone were turned over. Manuel Noriega regime, 1983 to 1989. On July 31, 1981, Torrijos perished in an unexplained plane crash. Charges and rumors of an assassination arose from the circumstances surrounding his death. The passing of Torrijos altered the political climate in Panama, but not its course. The Panama Defense Forces, PDF, remained in charge of politics behind a facade of civilian administration in spite of constitutional revisions made in 1983 that seemed to forbid the military from having a political role. By then, General Manuel Noriega had solidified his hold on both the civilian administration and the PDF, and he had established the Dignity Battalions to aid in the repression of opposition. The United States and Panama's relations deteriorated in the 1980s. Despite covert cooperation with U.S. President Ronald Reagan on his Contra war in Nicaragua, including the Iran-Contra affair and aerial delivery of weapons and drugs. In the summer of 1987, the U.S. withdrew its military and economic aid from Panama due to an attack on the U.S. Embassy and a domestic political turmoil. When Noriega was charged with narcotics trafficking in U.S. courts in February 1988, tensions increased. Reagan triggered the International Emergency Economic Powers Act in April 1988, preventing U.S. agencies, businesses, and individuals from making payments to the Noriega government and freezing Panamanian government assets in U.S. banks. The nation was plunged into chaos. Despite several attempts by the authorities to rig the election, foreign observers like as the Catholic Church and Jimmy Carter recognized Indira's victory. Convening a meeting of foreign ministers at the U.S. request, the Organization of American States failed to secure Noriega's resignation. Thousands of troops were dispatched by the U.S. to bases in the Canal Zone. Authorities in Panama said that U.S. soldiers had illegally stopped and searched vehicles in Panama after leaving their posts. The Panamanian police, who were a branch of the Panamanian military, killed an American Marine who got lost in the old French neighborhood of Panama City and ran a roadblock. U.S. invasion 1989. By the fall of 1989, the dictatorship was barely holding on. The U.S. started invading Panama on December 20. They completed their goals under the codename Just Cause Operation, and on December 27, they started to withdraw. As per a dealing decades before, the U.S. was required to give back control of the canal to Panama on January 1. The day of the invasion, Indira was sworn in as president at a U.S. military base. Before it is away on May 29, 2017, Noriega was incarcerated for 40 years for narcotics trafficking. U.S. President George H.W. Bush promised $1 billion in help to Panama following the invasion. Detractors claim that approximately half of the aid was a gift from U.S. taxpayers to U.S. companies, since U.S. companies received $400 million as incentives to export goods to Panama. $150 million was used to settle bank debt, and $65 million was used for private sector loans and guarantees to U.S. investors. After Noriega, 1989 present, the presumed victor of the May 1989 election, Guillermo Endara, took the oath of office as President of Panama on the morning of December 20, 1989, just hours after the invasion began, at a U.S. military post in the Canal Zone. The opposition candidates for President, Endara, and Vice President, Guillermo Ford and Ricardo Arias Calderon, were declared victorious by the Panamanian Electoral Tribunal on December 27, which declared the Noriega regime's annulment of the May 1989 election to be invalid. Heading a four-party minority government, President Endara assumed office promising to support the country's economic recovery, convert the military into a civilian police force, and fortify democratic institutions. Over its 5-year tenure, the Endara administration found it difficult to live up to the public's high standards. Although the new police force was not entirely successful in deterring crime, it did show a significant improvement in mindset and behavior over its violent predecessor. Ernesto Perez Baladeres took office as president on September 1, 1994, following an election campaign that was watched closely by observers worldwide. The late dictator Martin Torrijos, a candidate for the PRD, was beaten on May 2, 1999 by Mireya Moscoso, the widow of former President Arnulfo Arias Madrid. The elections were seen as fair and free. September 1, 1999, was Moscoso's first day of work. Martin Torrijos was elected president in 2004 after running for office once more. In 2009, President Martin Torrijos was replaced by conservative supermarket tycoon Ricardo Martinelli, who emerged victorious in the presidential race. After 5 years, Juan Carlos Varela, the victor of the 2014 election, succeeded President Martinelli. After emerging victorious in the May 2019 presidential contest, Laurentino Nico Cortizo of the Democratic Revolution Party took the oath of office as the 26th president of Panama. José Raúl Mulino took office as president of Panama on July 1, 2024, and was sworn in. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.